Welcome back to Blender tutorial for medieval engineers. This goes along with my last videos. Some principles I want to clear up very for sure right away is whenever you make a new block, name it. I guess first off, I'm starting to do that now every time I make something, and make sure that whatever you name for the Blender name is the exact same name that goes here, and that is the exact same name that you named the top model, or at least the parent model in the hierarchy here. At least that's the process that I'm following now. If you do not, then you'll have connection errors between Herreg's Blender add-on, and it won't force the file codings for the textures that you're trying to put in, and it won't load them in the MWM at all. It just come up black. It's very annoying. You do everything right, and it's just because of something that you did in Blender. Has nothing to do with the game, but it seems as though it's just a fault. So I had to go through this process and have it happen multiple times. For this principle, I will definitely suggest, which I am now doing, I haven't done yet, to go to File, with everything deleted, mind you, over here, except the render layers, all that, everything default, initiate, set up the grid, and now I'm ready to work. And also click that. Now I'm ready to work. Now I'm going to save this as my go ahead for everything else. There we go. I'm going to work off this from now on for future videos. The next principle I'm going to focus on is naming this block as well as creating the block folder. And it all needs to be the same all down the line. I'm just checking because I'm running out of names here for these videos. So I'm saving a new block from the old startup or this new startup that I made. And I'm gonna check here, new block. This needs to translate to whatever you create here. So we're gonna be working on a small block, because I'm going to show how to make a placeholder small block now. We're going to need to add a block to the grid. We're going to need to change the grid to small. Now we're going to lose that orange box, but that's okay because we're going to rescale this thing down to the right scale size. Take the scale here, bring it down to 0.2 on all vectors. Now you can see it's the right scale size. We're going to make sure that we reset this scale to a normal scale, so that because if we scale this down again, we're not going to get the texture, I want to say the texture clarity that we want for a small block. So going down, once you get to the 0.2, and you see it's correct and it has the grid space around it, that's going to show up just perfect in the world. Over here, an object, you go to apply, Control A, you could just press Control A, or go to object, apply, and press scale, or S, and it resets to scale 111. Now, once you're done loading all your textures, you load the block up in the world, you see if it's the right shape, but that's going to be at also a different scale. It's going to be at 0.005 on all vectors. Now, if you don't do all this naming correctly all the way through, even to the folders, make sure you put yourself back in object mode before you save, then the textures are not going to switch from the FBX into the MWM using the add-on. It doesn't work. It ends up being black because the MWM is not receiving the textures because of this naming error. Now, to be certain, something I wasn't clear about in the previous videos, and I just now understand it fully. For the textures, all you really need to do is create a new texture. Just like that, material. Okay? It's a material. As you're creating a new material to put the textures on. And very important thing for this is you have to name it block sheet. It has to be named block sheet, so that whenever you add in the nodes right now, it turns the texture black. That means the model has received the texture. Although if you see here, you see there's no nodes, that's because you're still in Blender. Blender doesn't understand what's going on, but Cycles is where the add-on has its magic. So in Cycles, that's actually where the textures get applied. That's where, you know, the naming problem will come into place here, into the file folders and everything. In the SPC, you'll be able to change the description, and everything will show correctly as the name itself, you know, if you apply that correctly. So tooltips and naming and all that. So I guess in the end, if whatever this is going to be the block name in the game. So you're going to be really tedious beforehand. Moving on, once you add in your textures, which I'm not going to do on this video, I've shown enough on how to you know, prepare other things in the last videos. I think that it'll stand up to this one just fine. However, finding out now that you didn't need to add in those the pre-made block items from the, you know, game folder, that's a big bummer for me. This all works just fine. That's the small block, perfect in the world, at the right grid size, and you don't really have to modify it at all. It's been real easy for me to make models now this way. Over here for the specularity, I put the power at 10, shininess at 2, and then on the material itself I put the intensity at 2 and the power at 0.4. If you're wondering where I got these numbers, I actually got them from someone else's video, so that's just kind of like a hand-me-down. So just go off of that. Trust me when I say it's very helpful to do that. And the last thing, we're gonna throw the technique on Alpha Mask. That way the textures show up right. Now all you really got to do is add in the textures that you want. The DDSs, they all need to be the same size, and in the naming place here. Oh yeah, we need to make sure that we delete these. Just click on them and press X. And make sure that there's no other outputs there. That could bungle the model. And the image editor. Now what'll happen is over here, when you click on these textures here, and you add them in, they'll show up right here. You've seen that. You've seen me do that. Make sure that you do that right, and it's just textures and on. Because with all the naming and everything correct, once you make your mod block folder, which I'm about to do right now, make sure it's saved. Then everything has to be named the same as well. So this is new block. Now we're going to set the block size to small, if I can find it. Okie dokie, now we should be able to export it and it'll be all good in the world. We're about to do that. Okay, here we go. I think actually also we're just going to load up the texture that's in there, the Daddy Pink. Really simple. Go to the brush mask. Oh, here's the problem. So the brush mask, you're gonna need to load this load up that texture, but rename it to map number 1, map space. Number 1. And we're gonna add in a type image. We're going to use this to load up the Daddy Pink. Oh, we didn't save it. No. Cut. Paste. Textures forward. Now over here it gets really easy. Since that texture's been set, you can just put it here in the diffuse and in the color metal. I'm not sure it'll come out perfect, but we'll see what happens. Now we're going to export. Some export nodes reported issues. I'm sure it's because of the textures. We're just going to take the model from here. Paste it in there. We're going to load up the game. To finish this video, we're going to go to the Blender saves folder. Models, and I want you to take a look at the XML. And you can see that it loads the diffuse here. It loads the color metal, but this diffuse is never going to make it into the MWM. I've tried multiple times, and it's a loss fail. Don't use the diffuse slot. Don't use the normal slot. You use the normal gloss, the color metal. You could probably throw the mask in there. It may make a difference. It may not. I'm not sure. I haven't really done elaborate testing to that degree yet. But you need to add in the normal gloss and the alpha mask texture. I believe that the other texturing way is to change the slot at the top, but the bottom DirectX 11 uses different sets of calculation than the other DX9. So you'll see when you open up the log file here for the MWM, all you can see that loaded in was the diffuse and the color metal. So it did load them in. I haven't been able to get an actual understanding of what the diffuse texture is for yet, but all you really needed was the color metal and the alpha and the NG, the gloss. And to make those, there will be another video coming next for Paint.net program. Free, easy to use. Requires some plugins, but I'm going to supply them. If all is well, should be a little tiny little block that's like the size of a one-piece wood block. Should have some daddy pink all over it, but it might not show up right because I don't have the alpha in there. So there it is. And it's the right size. The texture's not showing up right, but that's because the alpha mask isn't on and everything isn't right like that. But you can see that foggy color. That actually means the texture is working on just fine. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching the small block placeholder video and the principles of future block making in Blender. Thank you.